Okay, well, good morning. Good morning again, brothers and sisters. We're going to go ahead and get this panel started. It's an exciting panel today. My name is Linda Hinton. I'm Vice President of CWA District 4. So, thank you. So, I'm excited for this panel. We're going to be talking about call center workers. I'm a former call center worker, so this is near and dear to my heart. So just to give a little bit of background, I'll be quick. I'm not going to sit up here and pontificate for half an hour, so I'll just give you a little bit of background, and then we'll hear from the presenters. So in 2016, while our union was on strike at Verizon, customer calls were being routed to call center vendors in the Philippines. When leaders of BN, the union worker for organized call center workers in Philippines, learned of the strike in the U.S., they reached out to CWA saying that they did not want to be scabs and asked what they could do to help us in our strike. That's right. So a delegation of striking Verizon workers traveled to the Philippines to meet the BN members and workers at the call centers handling Verizon calls. The workers held a joint picket in front of one of those call centers and were detained by the military police at gunpoint for a while, truly deepening the bonds of worker solidarity. Since then, officers and members of BN have attended CWA customer service conferences here in the U.S. A group of CWA call center employees traveled to the Philippines in 2019 to meet with BN members and held a full-day conference and rank-and-file BN members to develop strategies to address common issues amongst call center workers. The Philippine government has responded harshly to BN and other unions' efforts to organize and build unions. Facebook has been weaponized by the Philippine government against workers. Exercising their labor rights, as early as 2018, pictures of BN officers and members have been making the rounds of different Facebook pages tagging them as dangerous communist terrorists. In the last 5 years, 56 union activists have been killed and 32 are still in jail on trumped-up charges. It is truly a dangerous place to be trying to organize workers. This persecution is conducted by the Philippines National Police Force and military, both of whom receive funding and support from U.S. taxpayers in the form of military aid and cash assistance. We are joined today for a discussion by two close friends of CWA from the Philippines and Congresswoman Susan Wilde from Pennsylvania. So let me first introduce Mylene Cabalona. Wave, Mylene. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Mylene has been in the BPO industry for almost 11 years and has been active in the labor movement for the past 5 years, helping form and found BN, and is currently serving as president. Over the last several years, she has been repeatedly harassed and threatened for her union and organizing work. Mylene is a single mom of one and is a full-time call center employee. Next is Ann Kruger. Ann is a full-time, I recognize your name there. Ann is a full-time organizer and staff for BN. She is also a multimedia artist, a former community journalist, and now serves as a newscast host. She is a licensed higher ed teacher and a mother of 6. Yeah. Right. Has some resume here. Okay. In October of 2019, Ann was one of 57 activists who were illegally arrested on trumped-up charges of being an armed terrorist. CWA launched an effort to get Ann freed and help provide financial support for her bail. After 12 days, she was released, but the charges are still pending. So today, we're also fortunate to have with us Representative Susan Wilde of the 7th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. Representative Wilde was first elected to Congress in a special election in 2018 and was re-elected in 2020. She's been a strong supporter of organized labor, serving on the Education and Labor Committee. She also has been vocal critic of the right-wing anti-labor government around the world. She is the lead author of the Philippines Human Rights Act. So let's get with some questions here and get started. Hear your story. Mylene, can you talk about your experience just being a labor activist in the Philippines?
Yeah, it's quite terrifying actually at this point of time, being a labor activist or a unionist. I'm still working full-time for one of the big call center company in the Philippines. It's basically my, to legitimize that I'm a BPO worker so I can, stop, I can stop working. Actually, just to be here is already, it's a challenge. So we're really thankful that CWA, Solidarity Center, was able to allow us to visit and to share with you how is it in the Philippines at this point. You guys are really lucky to be able to, organize, to be able to join a union. In the Philippines, right now, it's a privilege to be, to be in a union. Unionism in the Philippines is currently demonized. Labor centers are vilified. Organizers like us are tagged or red tagged or labeled as communist recruiters or communist terrorists, actually. And that means that warrants death, arrest, harassment, and that actually has a mental effect to our children, to our family, and even us. I can't, walk at night. I have to always look over my shoulder. I have to be always on my foot, on my toes. Well, it's already like an open joke with us. If something happened to us, if it's going to be like free Mylene or justice for Mylene, I know it's terrible, but it's already an open joke to everyone, and but I know it's terrible. So you have to be thankful that you're able to join in a union because the power is actually within the union. And that's actually what we have. It's our passion, dedication for all call center workers to be able to organize them at this point.
Okay, thank you, Mylene. Wow. Well, we certainly see your passion for what you do, and thank you. And so, Anne, I know you and your husband were actually arrested for your union activity. And so first of all, let's say that we're glad that you're out and you're safe. That's the first thing. So same question for you. What has it been your experience as a labor activist in the Philippines?
All right. In the labor movement, I was actually new. I went full-time 2016 to do the organizing work for BIEN. I actually decided to volunteer because I wanted to help. So when I was working with BIEN, it was like I can do my share, how to put these people together, because I myself, when I was working in a call center, I have a lot of issues at work, and I don't know where to go, who to talk to. I can see unfair things that are happening inside. So when I found BIEN, it was like, oh, this is my opportunity to help. So activism starting from there is, it's a self-fulfilling work. To be able to see your co-workers, BPO workers in all parts of the Philippines getting what they deserve as workers and giving them knowledge or educating them about their rights, because there are a lot of BPO workers who are not familiar or they don't know what their rights are at work. So they just accept everything that the company's throwing at them. So it's like they don't complain because they might lose their jobs. So yeah, when we started the work, it's like when I see these people trying or starting to step up and do the initiative, to form groups, even just the chapters of BIEN, it was really a fulfilling job for me. And at the same time, it's also scary, just like what Mylene said. So during that time, of course, the past administration of Duterte, it was really a very rough time for all labor activists because during that time, attacks are one after the other. So I was also expecting something would happen to us. So, and then it happened. What I was just thinking is that even if this attack happened to us, it affected the whole family, myself. It's not the right time to stop to be scared. So when I was inside, I was like thinking, oh gosh, this happened to me. You know, I know it's already inevitable. So all of us, when we were inside, so all the activists, 57, were rounded up. So when we met each other, it was like, we were just laughing, like, oh my God, this is what the government looks at us. Like, we're just standing up for our rights, and then suddenly we're listed as high-value personalities, like top-ranking, you know, rebel officials, something like that. So it's like, I never dreamed of having that, you know, kind of title. So, yeah, activism is really tough. However, right now, even though the labor movement is somehow slow, but now it's getting back on their feet, it's like, it is important for us, if these things happen, we take a step backward, you know, to make ourselves strong and move 2 steps forward, you know, to continue the fight that we somehow left during those hard times. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. It is just the thought of being a call center worker, and you know, certainly have not experienced anything that you two have gone through is just something to hear. So, you know, my goodness, my heart goes out to you. So Representative Wilde, you have been a lead activist on all of this. Can you tell us just a little bit about how you got started with this and your advocacy for it?
I'd be happy to. And first of all, thank you all for having me. My district is Pennsylvania 7. Anybody here from Pennsylvania 7, the Lehigh Valley? Get some, okay. We are traditionally a labor stronghold in my district. And we had Bethlehem Steel back in the day, Mack Trucks, you know, this is a district that was born of union jobs, and we're proud of that. But in my first term in Congress, 2 years ago, we were approached in my office by CWA representatives about what was going on in the Philippines with these call centers. And I have to give a shout out to one of my staffers who's over in the far corner of the room in the second row, Jan Schnazi, who works with me on both foreign affairs matters, labor matters, and has helped me develop a reputation in Congress for having one of the most labor-friendly offices on Capitol Hill. We are really proud of that. I have to tell you, it's a lot easier when you're working with a Secretary of Labor like Marty Walsh than it was in my first term in Congress, and that's all I will say about that. But we were approached by CWA about the abysmal conditions that the call center workers were experiencing in the Philippines, and these striking workers from Verizon wanted to show solidarity with them, and they wanted to do something from the US to help them. And so we introduced, as a result of that, and I'll cut to the chase, we introduced the Philippines Human Rights Act, which was an act to make sure that the United States, which has traditionally provided very vigorous support for the Philippines military, that we were not funneling money and military resources to a country that's engaged not only in human and labor rights violations, but human rights violations, that is targeting labor activists, like our friends up here on the stage, targeting journalists, faith leaders, and all kinds of people on the ground in the Philippines. And I'm also a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, so this was kind of right up my alley. So we prepared the Philippines Human Rights Act. We introduced it in the first Congress that I was in. We have reintroduced it a year ago. But let me just tell you an anecdote to give you an idea of just how insidious this influence in the Philippines is. The day after we first introduced the bill, back in the last Congress, I woke up the next morning and did something that I have a bad habit of doing, which is checking my phone first thing in the morning. And I had a barrage of threatening, angry messages on social media, even texts from allies of the Duterte government, to the point where it was actually alarming. My first reaction was, this is the scariest thing that's happened to me since I got to Congress. That was before January 6th, but anyway. So we just felt that it was incredibly important to introduce this bill, and a lot of it stems from the fact, and I'm probably anticipating another question you might ask me, but the fact of the matter is that we are not protecting our workers at home unless we are protecting workers around the world, and that's just the way it is. We are all humans, and the fact that our companies have been able to outsource so many of their jobs to countries with very low pay and very few labor protections is to the detriment of our American workers. And so that was the impetus for the bill.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's just move to both Mylene and Ann. I just have a question for you as far as what type of problems that people are having at the call center workers in the Philippines, in the centers.
The industry itself, the call center industry, we call it business process outsource industry. It's entirely deregulated. So that actually entails a lot of problems. We're unable to, of course, organize. So we cannot organize people to join a union. It also entails, flexible labor. So whatever the company needs, the third party or the vendor who's actually in the Philippines would ensure that they would provide it to the client or to these big companies like AT&T. So if, for example, they would require just a number of service level for the specific hour, regardless of how many people are there, they would have to put them on a voluntary time off, and that's not paid. So that's normally what we call flex labor. And if there's a large volumes of calls or the service level is high, then even if you're on rest day, you would be mandated to go to work.
Oh.
So that's one thing. And then we have issues on performance metric. I think you're aware of that. So it's very, it's not doable, as they say. It's always, it's something that you really can't achieve. So that's performance metric, unable to join a union, unsafe workplaces. We don't have safety committee. Even if it's raining or a storm, if there's a storm or our country is in a tropical location, so there's always storm and there's always flood, there's always ash fall. You have to go to work, and if not, that's going to be taken against you, and you can get terminated if you go and absent. Even on a critical day, like for example Christmas or New Year, you can't go off work on that day, and they would have to sign. They would ask you to sign an attestation that you can't absent or you can't go off work. So that's one thing, and we also have issues on. Flex labor, security of tenure. They can easily just terminate you. So they can find anything. They can find anything just to get you terminated, especially if you've been in the company for how long? 10 years, 5 to 10 years. So there are no job security in call center.
Okay.
That's one thing. And of course, Ann will maybe discuss about the race to the bottom, the very low pay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, speaking of wages, it's still happening right now, the race to the bottom wages, meaning in Philippines, our minimum wage in Manila is somewhere around $13. However, in the regions, it goes lower than $13. So sometimes there are call centers who offer $8 per day. So $13 per day in Manila, and then as you go outside the city center, you go to the provinces where mostly call center companies are starting to set up because they thought it's cheaper, it's cheaper compared to the city center. And also, the wage goes lower, way lower than the one in the city center. And it's like the same customer service agent is doing the same job in the region, same customer service call center agent in Manila. They're doing the same job, but they have, a big wage gap. So it used to be entry level is around $300, right, per month, and now they're even offering lower than that.
250.
Yep. So actually, Bien spearheaded the BPO Workers Welfare Act. So we also engaged with the government. So we have this bill. There are actually 4 versions of it. So we have included all those issues that we have mentioned. So the wage, job security, occupational safety and health, and freedom of association. So there are like 4 versions of it. One is from us, and then the others are from the other people in the Congress. So until now, we're waiting for the Congress to, resume and consolidate all those 4 other several bills. Because until now, there are a lot of people coming to us complaining that, their salary is sometimes underpaid, and sometimes their overtimes are not being paid, and also benefits.
Okay.
So those are common problems.
All right. Well, some of the problems sound the same. We have a matrix, if you will, or goals that we have to meet in our call centers as well. So, while you have some differences, there are some things that are the same right here that we experience as some of the call center workers. And I see people nodding their heads, so they must be call center workers. So, Representative, as we wind up here, is there anything that you think that CWA members can do to help move this through Congress?
Absolutely. Keep doing what you're doing, number one. The advocacy that we saw with CWA workers coming to our office, that literally was what started the Philippines Human Rights Act. But as a result of that, we have continued to build on that. So with the Competes Act that you've all heard a lot about, and the Senate version, USICA, which is all about American competitiveness and manufacturing, we actually have managed to get an amendment in the Competes Act to make sure that we are not funneling money to the Philippines that's committing these human rights abuses unless we have assurances that they're not occurring. And so, we're tracking the Senate version, and we're working with a senator to try to get it in the Senate version too. You keep doing what you're doing. I'm not going to give you any new tasks. I'm just going to say persevere, keep working at it, talk to legislators, argue with them, vote for the ones who care about labor protections here and around the world. And that's all I can tell you. It's working, what you're doing.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's give our panel a round of applause, and thank you all for coming to the Philippines.
Thank you.
I told you this would be easy.
Thank you.
They were a little nervous at first, but I said you're amongst family, so they didn't see that, so thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye.